Viewers, you're watching the Explosive Exclusive with me, Rahul Shivshankar. We focus on a developing story, a breaking story on this particular show. And we won't disappoint you today because you will be speaking in just a few moments to Vivek Agnihotri. Now, why is Vivek Agnihotri back in the news? Because, viewers, he claims that he has been cancelled by Oxford University. We all know of Oxford University. It rates among the first 5 in the world on any educational survey. It is known as the bastion of liberalism. It is where the leftians' lobby dissents at different times in the year. Most recently, you saw Rahul Gandhi being hosted at Oxford by one particular faculty to wax eloquent about the lack of free speech, freedom, democracy, etc. here in India. Every word he uttered, as he does so quite often gushingly, was very well applauded by a group of fellow intellectual co-travelers. All of them today collectively are defined by those on the right as woke liberals. Right or wrong, viewers, Oxford University has built its reputation as being an open campus for debate. Intolerance on campus has, of course, been spoken in hushed tones in recent past. We saw Rashmi Samant, who was very, very intimately associated with Oxford as a student, being singled out. Many said because her views clashed with the prevailing intellectual flavor at Oxford. Viewers, intolerance, especially when it comes to spaces that are considered to be devoted to the liberal arts and populated by left liberals, very often they turn out to be quite intolerant. As I just told you, filmmaker Vivek Agnihotri has alleged that he was invited by the Oxford Union, no less, to deliver a lecture on campus. The lecture on Kashmir files was confirmed for the 31st of May. According to him, he was ready to take on any question that was going to be asked of him about his motivations, about various critics who have come out and said that the film promotes a insidious divisiveness. He was ready. He was ready for an open debate, and what better institute than Oxford? But he now claims that this interaction was cancelled at the last moment. Cancelled, viewers, quote unquote. He says this is an example of intolerance, of a cancel culture to any opposing point of view, to a contending point of view. Times Now has accessed the invite given to Agnihotri. It's on your screens. It confirms that he was granted to speak an event on May 31st, granted permission, invited. Now Agnihotri says that despite a confirmation being given in writing a week earlier, he was unceremoniously cut off, cancelled, so to speak. The excuse given to him was there was a double booking, which they had overlooked. But if a confirmation was already given in writing, is a double booking a plausible excuse? Viewers, we will hope to be also speaking to Rashmi Samant, who suffered a creeping, tacit cancel culture. But first, listen to Vivek Agnihotri as he made this comment, and then we're going to speak to him. Let's first listen into his comment.
Hello, friends. As you are aware that I'm here in Europe on a humanity tour. This tour was decided because a lot of prestigious places invited me, like Cambridge University, Oxford University, British Parliament, and a lot of places in Germany and Netherlands. But yesterday, a very strange thing happened. At Cambridge University, when I reached there at the last minute, I was told that you cannot video record the event. Now, this is 100% curbing of freedom of expression. And this happened because few Pakistani and Kashmiri Muslim students protested against it. These are genocide deniers. They are fascists. Their logic is, perhaps, which they write in social media, because I support a democratically elected Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. Now, this is the same university where Subhash Chandra Bose studied, but recently on his 150th year, he was also cancelled. They said Bose is a fascist. Now, another very strange thing happened. Today, I was supposed to go to Oxford University because Oxford Union invited me long time ago. It was all confirmed on emails, but just few hours before that, they said that, sorry, we made a mistake. There was a double booking and therefore we cannot host it today. And without even asking me, they changed the date to 1st of July because on the 1st of July, no student would be there and there's no point doing an event. Are they cancelling me? No. They want to cancel democratically elected government of India, especially Mr. Narendra Modi. They want to label us as fascist people, as Islamophobic. Now, as if killing thousands of Kashmiri Hindus was not Hindu-phobic, but making the film on the truth is Islamophobic. The second biggest problem is they are not cancelling me. They are cancelling the genocide. They are cancelling Hindus. You have to understand Hindus are in minority in Oxford University. And this is the oppression of minority. This is Hindu-phobia. This is fascism. This is the same Oxford University which has hosted dictators and fascists, including Indira Gandhi and Bhutto's son, and many African radical extremists. So please support me in this cause. I am filing a lawsuit against them. I am going to claim all the damages. Please support me. Join me. Jai Hind.
Let's go straight across to Vivek Agnihotri, who joins us. Mr. Agnihotri, you made some very pointed charges against Oxford, and you sort of linked them to a Hindu phobia. Can you explain?
Okay, so people have to understand Oxford Union is one of the most popular and so-called in hierarchy at the top, the debating society. These people have even invited people like Gaddafi. After Gaddafi accepted to the bombings which killed almost 270 people, they have invited Indira Gandhi. They have called many African dictators and radical extremists. The problem is that Hindus are in minority. Oxford University and Cambridge, especially these British universities, have tried to maintain a narrative that there was no genocide in Kashmir of Hindus. Their narrative has been that the Muslims are oppressed and it has always been a Muslim land which Hindus want to capture illegally and undemocratically, to which Pandit Nehru surrendered or kind of compromised on that, because all these people who are educated in Oxford, you will find anybody who's come from this education, still in their heart they believe. Even when Shashi Tharoor went there, he was very apologetic about Kashmir. So this is the narrative Oxford propagates, and this is what they believe in. Oxford is dominated by Middle Eastern lobbies, Middle Eastern funding, and Pakistani students. Hindu students are in minority. So Hindu students who go there either surrender or succumb to this pressure and also become communist, leftist, kind of a nexus, Islamist nexus, and they also speak anti-Hindu narrative. So I was invited by Oxford Union. It's not that I applied or I said invite me. They invited me after Kashmir Files. But then slowly all these Pakistani and Islamist voices started protesting. And they started protesting. Their major contention was that I am Islamophobic because I exposed Kashmir genocide in my film, The Kashmir Files. The second thing was they said I support fascist Prime Minister because I supported Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He's a democratically elected, one of the biggest victories he got. I supported him, so they said I am also fascist. So that the fascist and Islamophobe should not be called. So they started mounting pressure. And they wrote about it in social media. That's how I know it. And the president-elect is a Pakistani boy. And instead of cancelling directly, their tactic has always been all over the world. If you see, they always say, oh, sorry, we made a technical mistake. There has been a double booking. That's exactly what they have done with Rajiv Malhotra and Subramaniam Swamy and a lot of Hindu voices. So they sent an email on Sunday saying that, sorry, we made a mistake. There was a double booking, which is total lie, because on their calendar there is no double booking. In fact, on my time slot today, some British athlete is speaking. Then no, actually we have some technical problem. Our AV guy or AV team is not there. We said we will provide AV team, or you do it without the AV team. How does it matter? Mm-hmm. And so this is how it actually happened. So the real reasons are that they are Hindu-phobic people. They don't want Hindu voice. They did not cancel me. in effect, they have cancelled Kashmir genocide because a whole lot of victims, children, students, they were going to come.
So what you're
and
saying,
they realized.
correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Agnihotri, what you're saying is that the university per se, or some individuals in the union per se, are putting now pressure to get you cancelled because that lobby wants to promote the status quo sort of narrative on Kashmir that, well, you know, Kashmir is a disputed territory, that the Indian government is occupying this land, and that human rights are being suppressed. And you, of course, would have sort of corrected that impression and got a platform to do so, and also talked a little bit about this entire narrative that's sought to be constructed, that the Indian state is Islamophobic and therefore targeting the valley population of Muslims exceptionally by actually going back in time and exposing the guilt behind, or the guilty behind, the greatest Hindu genocide that has happened after partition in India. Is that really what you're saying?
Exactly. In fact, there is one more element to it. Yasin Malik pleaded guilty, and that exposed them after the Kashmir files exposed them, bringing the truth out. When Yasin Malik pleaded guilty, then it exposed their and bursted their entire narrative, because these people have been celebrating JKLF and Yasin Malik.
Right.
These people came out in support of Yasin Malik. They have hosted him. These people are, you know, they are kind of intellectual partners of JKLF. So this entire narrative was bursting, and they realized, when I come, I will further expose Yasin Malik, what he did with Air Force officers and what he did with Hindu families and children. So that's why they got scared, and they started running a social media campaign, and then they started protesting at the union, and they said, you cannot call somebody who supports a fascist prime minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. That is the biggest problem, you know. So I am the collateral damage in this. But the thing is that Hindus are in minority, and they are oppressing minority voices. On their social media handle, they write, we are the last bastion of free speech. But no Hindu student is allowed to speak for Hindu genocide. So in effect, they have cancelled. They realized that so many Kashmiri Hindu young second generation boys and girls were going to attend, whose parents live here, the Kashmiri Pandit community. And they realized that this is going to be very embarrassing for them, calling me, because you know that I very openly, very blatantly, very honestly speak for the cause of Kashmiri Hindus and their genocide. I speak against Yasin Malik, and I exposed Yasin Malik to whatever might I had.
Okay.
And these are the two things.
Well,
which,
you're getting a lot of support, because we've invited our guest to speak to. Rashmi Samant also joins us, viewers. We all know Rashmi Samant. Mr. Agnihotri, just stay on with us. I'm opening this conversation now to our viewers, and I promise them that you will be able to speak to Mr. Agnihotri. We have a viewer calling in from Chennai, MK Sundaram. Mr. Sundaram, you've heard what Mr. Agnihotri has had to say. What's your view?
I empathize with Mr. Agnihotri. I think there should be any organization that claims the moral high ground when it comes to freedom of expression should actually walk its talk and allow different points of view to.
Do you want to say a few words to Mr. Agnihotri? He's live with us.
I'd like to thank him for the efforts that he's put in to bring out the Kashmir files and to bring out points of view that were earlier known only in, articles which were far and few.
Yes.
So for his effort to actually bring this out on big screen, and
this
to do
is,
that
Mr. Agnihotri, you want to say a few words to Mr. Sundaram?
Yeah, I just lost it,
He's thanking you. He's thanking you for making the movie that exposed the narrative and brought it out, a narrative that, of course, is not most widespread.
Oh, thank you, sir, for that. But that movie is just a part of the mission we have taken. I'm also making a docu-series on this, and I'm here in Europe on this mission. It's called Humanity Tour, to raise the voice for Hindu genocide, which is the continuous. Today only one lady teacher has been killed so brutally. She has been targeted, identified, and she's been killed. And this proves that this is the longest continuous Hindu genocide. And the whole world is talking about Islamophobia. I fail to understand with this why people are not talking about Hindu phobia, or at least terror phobia. We should be terror phobic.
Absolutely. You've made a very, very important point. We also have two other viewers, but before that, I want to bring in Rashmi Samant. Rashmi Samant, you've experienced firsthand a kind of intellectual intolerance. Talk us through it. You were at Oxford.
Indeed, I was at Oxford. I was elected the president of the student union and then hounded out for my belief. And a lot of the accusations which were leveled against me were very similar to what Vivek ji is currently facing. That is the typical line of attack which the far left Hindu-phobic forces at University of Oxford use. You would be surprised to find out that the same Oxford Union, which does not want to listen to the Kashmiri Pandit plight, has platformed people like Mehdi Hassan for the, in the past decade to speak about the Kashmiri plight. So they've been at it to whitewash the Kashmiri Pandit plight for the past, decade. And here we had Vivek ji finally to present the other side and to counter the lies, and they could not have it because it's 1 decade of lies and whitewashing that would all go down the drain if Vivek ji would be platformed there. And I think that is absolutely pathetic, and I mean it's gagging, and it is spreading goibelian lies to actually suppress the Kashmiri Pandit genocide. There is an ongoing genocide which is violent. There is also this sort of attempt to gag the voices, which just makes the entire situation worse.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. At least from your point of view, you're speaking from your own experience. There has been a selective narrative surrounding the issues in Kashmir. I myself know this, viewers, and before you, for 10 years, we have been trying to put out the facts, but to no avail. Let me very quickly go across to Ashok, who's calling in from Bengaluru, and Sannat, who's calling in from Shimla. Ashok, please go ahead with your views. Mr. Agnihotri can hear you.
Firstly, I would compliment Mr. Agnihotri, whom I had met in his book launch in Bangalore. I have been an admirer of that book as well as Kashmiri Files. I condemn this so-called left liberalism, which is actually Pak elements dominating Oxford University and creating Hindu phobia. We have sorry to say, a Pappu talking nonsense and promoting China in the same university just a few days back. And we have a fine director who exposed the genocide of Kashmiris, which was not palatable to Pakistanis, of course, and also to some so-called intellectuals in India. I am very glad that he's taking that up legally. Wish you all the best, Agnihotri sir. I'm sure you'll come out flying. We all love you. All true Indians love you.
There you go, Mr. Agnihotri. True Indians love you. Mr. Ashok says, we support you in your cause. Go after them. Expose them.
Thank you very much. And it's ironical, Rahul, that the theme of my speech was India, humanity and oneness. Can you believe it? And I've sent the poster to you also, you can see, and they cancelled it because they don't believe in oneness. They believe in separatism, and that's why they celebrate people like Yasin Malik and Afzal Guru. They were very sad when Yasin Malik was convicted a few days ago. And they don't want this to be exposed that he was behind the killing of so many people. If I had gone there, like Rashmi said, if they had platformed me, I would have busted their narrative, which they have built over hundreds of years.
Yes, absolutely. I think you make an important point about providing space to the other point of view. Sannat calling in from Shimla, Ravi Chandan from Mumbai. Sannat, go ahead with your views.
Yeah, hi, Rahul ji, and hi, Agnihotri sir.
Good evening.
Sir, I'm a big fan of yours, Agnihotri sir, and I'd recently seen the Kashmiri Files on Z5. So I just noticed that you are just trying to get the truth. मतलब जो आप मैं कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि आप जो सच है वो आप उनके सामने प्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं. मैं बस यही कहना चाहूँगा. एंड दिस इज नो वे कि जैसे आपका अभी जो ऑक्सफोर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी में है, दैट टूर हैज बीन कैंसल्ड. सो पीपल लाइक राहुल गांधी आर डूइंग नॉनसेंस टॉक्स ऑफ चाइना देयर. And how can we guys deal with that? And you see, like, if people like you go there, you'll like you'll bring the truth. Yeah,
absolutely, he'll expose the truth, and that's perhaps one of the reasons why he has been cancelled. At least that's what he's claiming. Naga Prasad calling in from Hyderabad. Please go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Agnihotri. Good evening, Mr. Rahul.
Good evening, sir.
I will begin by saying congratulations, sir. You made a great movie, Mr. Agnihotri. It actually got India together. For the first time, we Indians have seen what happened in Kashmir. Hats off. It was a great
lot of
movie.
support coming in from Mr. Agnihotri here. Mr. Agnihotri, India wants you to ensure that justice is done to the likes of you, Rashmi Samant and others who speak up for the country, the great unity that we all possess, and try to break down this narrative of lies that is spun like a web by busy spiders. Where, viewers? Sitting in universities, pretensions of liberalism. That's the big problem. Hema calling in from Jodhpur. Hema, yes, go ahead. What's your view? What would you like to say to Mr. Agnihotri?
Hello.
Hello, Hema, go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Rahul. I'm a big fan of yours as well as Mr. Agnihotri. I just to Mr. Vivek Agnihotri for a wonderful movie. I'll just take a little from his previous movie, which is the Tashkent File. In this, he exposed a lot of big narratives about the government, and the government which is here hide the truth about lots of things. It's just about the previous, not only Prime Minister's murder. It is a way of how the previous government actually worked.
Yes.
And in this Kashmir File, actually, this is an extension only. And
extension.
I just want...
Well, viewers are not impassive. They are not foolish. They can see through these machinations. DN Call also calling in, Aksham calling in. I'm just coming out to you, Mr. Agnihotri and Ms. Samant. First, Mr. Agnihotri. Now, I want you to tell us a little bit about the conversations you've been having with these people at Oxford over the last few days. How have they tried to get out of this?
They can't. Because they invited me, and that's why I have incurred all these expenses and I have taken out time. It was all centered around Oxford, and they cannot. We have everything on email. And I have contacted the topmost solicitors here in Britain, and I'm going to sue them. I have already actioned a legal lawsuit, and I'm going to definitely teach them a lesson. Because what happens is in countries like Britain, they only understand the language of law. These are big courtrooms, the universities have become, everything is about law. So I'm going to teach them a lesson because they invited me. That's why I'm here. And that's why they're scared. They cannot say anything. But more than that, I think the thing is that when people like me, earlier also it has happened with a couple of people, then it just happens for a few days. But I'm happy you took the cause of Rashmi. Today everybody recognizes Rashmi. And Rashmi is the first one actually who informed me the behind the scene campaign, what is going on. And that's how I understood the game behind that.
Oh.
We have sent them a legal notice, and I'm going to take it to its logical conclusion, and I'll ensure that next time nobody has the guts to cancel anybody who talks about Hindu genocide, who talks about terrorism. The problem is these terrorism is a big industry, and through this terrorism is being justified, and students are radicalized to work for the cause and give ideological shelter and shield to terror organizations. It's a very clear-cut game. Nobody can dispute it. So I'm going to expose it, maybe with my art, with my next film.
Well, Mr. Agnihotri, talking about intellectual terrorism and, of course, discrimination. Rashmi Samant claims that she has, of course, suffered firsthand. Now, Rashmi Samant, just tell us a little bit about how you got to know that there was this campaign behind the scenes.
Well, I'm still a part of a large number of groups because I just recently graduated 2 months ago. I came across a toolkit, a 30-page toolkit against Vivek ji, I think over the weekend, which I did share with him, which was all, trying to build up this propaganda about Islamophobia and, the other buzzwords in the left. And I was immediately alarmed that, they are planning something, because I had read about his event a week or two prior, that he's due to speak there. And, just around the time that he's due to speak there, why is there a toolkit about him circulating in these groups? And then I knew that something was up, and then, just email it over to him. And this is unfortunately how it works. It's very organized. And they come up with this whole framework by attaching things out of context, by connecting things out of context to build a narrative. So, they would pick up things from 10 years ago, from 20 years ago, from probably the childhood of Vivek ji, from, people around him, and they would hold him accountable for all these, actions put in a single place out of context, like a toolkit, somehow making him look, like an Islamophobe, whereas that's not the truth. And then, they start these protests and then, vilify, demonize the person, and then ultimately garner enough support to cancel the person himself. So this was something that was done along my time as well. So I think I'm more sensitive to these sort of markers, which are very, very sort of prevalent in the whole left ecosystem. So it was very well planned, and it has been happening for more than a week now.
The biggest misnomer, of course, is the word liberal, which is associated with the left, because they are anything but that. And that's really something that one needs to think about. I want to bring in Mr. D.N. Kaul from Bengaluru and Aksham from Mumbai. Mr. D.N. Kaul, please go ahead with your view.
Good evening, Mr. Rahul.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir. Please.
And our panelists. My simple question to Mr. Agnihotri is that this Kashmir file was the tip of an iceberg. So, will you please go for any part 1 or part 2?
Okay, Aksham, we've lost Aksham, but D.N. Kaul making that point. Now, Mr. Agnihotri, of course, the toolkit was doing the rounds. I'm sure you have that toolkit before you. We have also been able to access this toolkit, which we will break in just a few moments. Mr. Agnihotri, now the thrust obviously is to discredit you. This is not the first time, is it?
Oh, yeah. That's a very usual technique. They've been doing it. I've been a leftist when I was a student, so I totally know how it works, But then they cannot stop me. If they could have stopped me, they would have stopped me many years ago when I was attacked in JNU and Jadavpur. See, it's very important for somebody to speak up, Rahul. You were one of those first people who had warned me when I was going to Jadavpur University, I remember, and I owe it to you. These people very systematically, what they do is they pick up something which you said as a child or you did as a teenager, or maybe there's something in your hands, and then they try to amplify it, labeling you with the labels like misogynist, fascist, Islamophobe, casteist, etc., etc. And that's what people fall prey to, and they surrender to this. I'm not the one who's going to do it. In fact, my next film, The Delhi Files, is going to rattle them a lot. It's not just rattle, it's going to uproot them totally, and is going to burst them totally for all this narrative they are building against India and Hindus, especially in these radicalized Islamist universities like Oxford and Cambridge. My problem is they published on their Facebook page, it's an open thing, you can go to the Oxford Union page, they changed the date without my knowledge from 31st of today's date to 1st of July, without my knowledge. So that it doesn't look like they have cancelled me, but actually they have cancelled me. And let's not fall prey to these technical things. So what I'm planning to do is, I am just going to the speaker's corner at Hyde Park one of these Sundays, where Gandhi spoke, where Martin Luther King spoke, where some of the greatest minds have spoken. I'm going to go there and I'm going to speak my mind. What can they do? They cannot, okay, they can cancel me at Oxford, but they can't cancel me at Hyde Park at speakers, this thing. And this is what they fear. So let's see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes. Been able to access this toolkit that Rashmi Samant, the alleged toolkit that Rashmi Samant was talking about. Rashmi Samant, how did you come across this toolkit? Obviously, there are people who sympathize with your point of view and with you and with Mr. Agnihotri. And of course, there are people who love India and want to ensure that whatever is spoken on international forums is accurate.
No, that's true. And these toolkits are nothing but, ways to, to propagate false propaganda. And like Vivek ji said, it's along the lines of the typical way to cancel people, because, truth can't get them anywhere. So all they do is devise ways to promote the, the falsities to bury the truth. But I think there is a dialogue in his film as well, which says that ultimately the truth will come out.
Ultimately, the truth always has a habit of coming out, and it is going to explode on our screens now. Rashmi Samant, the toolkit is with us. Let me bring in Padmaja Joshi. Padmaja, over to you.
That's correct, Rahul. In fact, we were also alerted to the fact that first there was a message that was circulated in the Oxford Union, and it said that the Oxford Union has invited Vivek Agnihotri, a propaganda filmmaker from India, to speak to members on 31st May. We are deeply concerned by this decision. Then they list a series of charges against him and say the union's decision to platform such a person shows how removed union leadership is from the lives of their South Asian members. Join us at the Oxford Union on the 31st of May to protest against Vivek Agnihotri and the Oxford Union, and then the cancellation happens. In addition to this message that was circulated, there is also a document that in fact was circulated, and it makes a 7-point charge sheet, as it were, and this was put out saying that there were annexures that had been put of news clips, etc. Then says that he has made casteist remarks, he is openly Islamophobic, he has made a film which is openly Islamophobic, and it calls, by the way, the fifth point says his docu-fiction films are ahistorical, factually incorrect, and laced with hyper-nationalist propaganda and intolerable subpar cinematography. A large number of critics found the Kashmir files filled with factual inaccuracies, etc., etc., and says it's a relentless targeting of every Muslim represented on screen. So basically, this was the document that was circulated with 7 points of why Vivek Agnihotri should not be platformed, and everyone was called to protest, and it was said that we cannot tolerate such a person being platformed at Oxford Union.
And was this an afterthought, Mr. Agnihotri? Padmaja, thanks for joining us with the toolkit, 30-page toolkit now being broken on Times Now. Rashmi Samant was talking about it. Padmaja just read it out. Mr. Agnihotri? Rashmi, you were talking about this, the 30-page toolkit, and look, first an invite is extended, and then this is circulated, a 30-page toolkit, as you put it.
Yes, I mean, that is definitely the way these people go. And there was one against me once upon a time, there is one now, and this is just the typical way to cancel people, to mobilize people, to spread false narratives. In fact, the word South Asia, so South Asian society came up because I think they were one of the key people to organize the protest. You can see this tweet from, I think, 2019, wherein the government of Pakistan is actually praising the society for putting up a protest, in solidarity with the people of Kashmir. And 15th August was declared a black day by the same society. So you can imagine how far removed this whole South Asian society is from the, one of the largest nations in South Asia, which is India. They're far removed from the realities here, and they're very much ingrained in false propaganda. And this is seen over and over and over again in news releases, in tweets by official handles of governments like the government of Pakistan. So it's nothing but it's nothing but lies which are interlaced in a way to make it sound credible, and the typical propaganda style. I think there were many toolkits. There was one during the farmers' protest as well. So it's very typical and very telling of the ecosystem.
Thank you for exposing this ecosystem. Thank you for busting the propaganda. Rashmi Samant, thank you for joining us on Times Now. We move on.